Hi everyone! Welcome back to another episode of Project Accounting. So for today's episode, we will talk about the elements of an assurance engagement. So at the end of this lecture, you will be able to identify the 5 elements of assurance engagement and describe the characteristics of the elements of an assurance engagement. So gaya ng na-discuss natin last time, not all engagements performed by practitioners ay assurance engagements. So an assurance engagement must have the following elements. Three-party relationship involving a practitioner, a responsible party, and intended user, appropriate subject matter, suitable criteria, sufficient appropriate evidence, and written assurance report. So let's discuss one by one yung mga elements of an assurance engagement. So, unahin na natin yung three-party relationship. So, an assurance engagement involved three separate parties, a practitioner, a responsible party, and intended user. So, sino ba si practitioner? Practitioner is a CPA in public practice who performs the assurance engagement. The practitioner may be engaged by the responsible party or yung intended user. Practitioner is broader than the term auditor kasi yung auditor, sila lang yung practitioners who perform audit or review engagements. So sa lawak ng assurance engagement, a practitioner may be requested to perform assurance engagements on a wide range of subject matters. And yung iba dito may require specialized skills and knowledge beyond those ordinarily possessed by individual practitioner. Siyempre, hindi dapat tumanggap si practitioner na kahit anong engagement if yung professional competence will not be satisfied. Pero in some cases, pwede pa rin tumanggap si practitioner kahit na wala siyang professional competence to do that engagement. As long as yung practitioner uses the work of persons from other professional disciplines which referred to as experts. So next naman is yung responsible party. Responsible party are the person responsible for the subject matter and the subject matter information or the assertion. Sino ba usually ang example ng responsible party? Siyempre, yung entities management that is responsible for the preparation and presentation of financial statements or the establishment and implementation of internal control. So next naman is yung intended user. Intended users are users to whom the practitioner usually addresses the report. The responsible party and the intended users may be from different entities or the same entity. Different entities meaning responsible party is yung client, tapos ang intended users yung mga users of financial information. Paano naman kapag same entity? For example, si senior management which is yung intended user. Nag-engage sila ng practitioner to perform assurance engagement para malaman nila kung okay ba yung activities nila in which yung lower management responsible. So we should take note na si responsible party can be one of the intended users, pero di dapat lang siya nag-iisa. And also, we should take note na yung assurance report dapat ina-address na lahat ng intended users. Paano kapag yung ibang intended users is di ma-identify? So kapag ganun, intended users may be limited to major stakeholders with significant and common interest. At pwede silang ma-identify for example by agreement between practitioner and the responsible party or by law. Tapos, whenever practical, dapat involve si intended users kina practitioner and responsible party in determining requirements of the engagement. Regardless of the involvement of others, si practitioner pa rin yung responsible sa pagdetermine ng nature, timing, and extent ng procedure at alamin kapag merong material modification sa subject matter information. So next naman is yung appropriate subject matter. Ano ba yung subject matter and yung subject matter information? Ang subject matter is yung information to be evaluated or measured against the criteria. So yung subject matter, yun yung information pa lang na i-evaluate, then yung outcome ay yun yung subject matter information. We should take note na yung subject matter information yung itetest the practitioner to gather sufficient appropriate evidence para makapag-provide siya ng reasonable basis for expressing a conclusion in an assurance report. So, kailan ba natin sasabihin na appropriate yung subject matter? First, dapat identifiable siya and capable of consistent evaluation or measurement against the identified criteria, and dapat subjected din siya sa procedures for gathering sufficient appropriate evidence to support reasonable assurance or limited assurance conclusion as appropriate. So the subject matter and the subject matter information of an assurance engagement can take many forms depending on the category. For example, the financial performance or conditions. So yung subject matter natin doon is yung historical or prospective financial position, financial performance, and cash flows. Then yung subject matter information na kailangan ni practitioner is yung recognition, measurement, presentation, and disclosure represented in financial statements. Ganun din sa non-financial performance or conditions. So, yung subject matter is yung performance ng entity, and yung subject matter information is yung key indicators of efficiency and effectiveness. Sa physical characteristics naman, for example, yung subject matter is yung capacity ng facility. Then yung subject matter information is yung specifications document. Then for systems and processes, entities internal control or IT system yung subject matter, and yung subject matter information is yung assertion about the effectiveness ng internal control. Then lastly, sa behavior naman. So yung subject matter is yung corporate governance, compliance with regulation, human resource practices. And then yung subject matter information is yung statement of compliance or statement of effectiveness. Next na element naman ng assurance engagement ay suitable criteria. Ano ba yung criteria? Criteria are benchmarks used to evaluate or measure the subject matter. Criteria can be formal or less formal. Ilan sa mga example ng formal criteria ay IFRS or any accounting standard kapag nagpe-prepare ng FS, established internal control framework kapag nagre-report on internal control, and applicable law, regulation, or contract kapag nagre-report naman sa compliance. Example naman ng less formal criteria ay yung mga internally developed code of conduct or agreed level of performance. Bakit important na yung criteria na gagamitin to evaluate subject matter is suitable? Required kasi ang suitable criteria para consistent yung maging evaluation or measurement of a subject matter. Kapag walang frame of reference, any conclusion is open to individual interpretation and misunderstanding. So criteria can be established or specifically developed. Kapag established criteria, ito yung mga nasa laws or regulations or issued by authorized or recognized bodies of experts. So kapag specifically developed naman, ito yung mga designed for the purpose of the engagement. It is important na yung criteria is available sa mga intended users para maintindihan nila paano in-evaluate yung mga subject matter. Criteria may be available to intended users through publicly, through inclusion in the presentation of the subject matter information, through inclusion in the assurance report, and by general understanding. So, para masabi nating suitable yung criteria, dapat meron siya nitong mga characteristics as follows. First is relevance. Dapat nakaka-contribute yung criteria sa conclusions to assist in decision-making by the intended users. Next is yung completeness. Masasabi nating complete yung criteria kapag yung mga relevant factors na nakakaapekto sa conclusion ay hindi naalis. Next is yung reliability. So masasabi natin na reliable yung criteria kapag it allows the consistent evaluation or measurement of the subject matter kapag ginamit in similar circumstances. Next naman is neutrality. So dapat yung na-contribute to conclusions are free from bias. And lastly is understandability. Yung na-contribute dapat sa conclusions ay clear, comprehensive, and not subject to significantly different interpretations. Next element is sufficient appropriate evidence. So sa pagplan and perform ng assurance engagement, dapat si practitioner ay may attitude of professional skepticism to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence about whether the subject matter information is free from material misstatement. Dapat i-consider ni practitioner yung materiality, assurance engagement risk, and the quantity and quality of available evidence when planning and performing the engagement, in particular when determining the nature, timing, and extent of evidence gathering procedures. Ano ba yung professional skepticism? Professional skepticism is an attitude that includes a questioning mind, being alert to conditions which may indicate possible misstatement due to error or fraud, and a critical assessment of evidence. So yung attitude of professional skepticism is necessary throughout the engagement process para mabawasan yung risk na ma-overlook yung mga suspicious circumstances tapos magkakaroon ng overgeneralization kapag nag-conclude at mag-assume in determining the nature, timing, and extent of evidence gathering procedures at sa pag-evaluate ng results. So para malaman natin na yung subject matter information ay free from material misstatement, dapat maka-obtain si practitioner ng sufficient appropriate evidence. Ano naman itong evidence? Evidence is the information obtained by the practitioner in arriving at the conclusions on which the conclusion is based. So, dapat sufficient and appropriate yung evidence na magagather ni practitioner. Kapag sinabing sufficient, it refers to the measure of the quantity of evidence. Sufficiency is determined based on the practitioner's professional judgment. Masasabing sufficient na ang evidence if sapat na yung mga evidence na nagather to reasonably conclude in an assurance engagement. Kapag sinabi namang appropriate yung evidence, it refers to the measure of the quality of evidence, that is, its relevance and its reliability. Relevant ang evidence if it pertains to the assertions being evaluated or to the specific objective being tested. Masasabi naman natin na reliable ang evidence if it is objective. Last element of assurance engagement is the written assurance report. Written assurance report is the written report prepared by the practitioner to the intended users that contains certain specified information and a conclusion that conveys the assurance obtained on the subject matter information. So balikan lang natin yung mga samples of written assurance report as discussed last time. Alamin natin kung anong klaseng conclusion at anong type ng assurance engagement. First, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the entity as at December 31, 2020, and its financial performance and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with XYZ framework. So kapag nakita natin itong conclusion na ito ay reasonable assurance. Kapag limited assurance naman, based on our work described in this report, nothing has come to our attention that causes us to believe that internal control is not effective in all material respects based on XYZ criteria. Kapag ganito naman ang conclusion, in our opinion, the responsible party's assertion that internal control is effective in all material respects based on XYZ criteria is fairly stated, assertion-based ang assurance engagement. And lastly, kapag direct reporting naman, in our opinion, internal control is effective in all material respects based on XYZ criteria. So, kailan lang pwedeng i-accept ni practitioner yung assurance engagement? Pwede lang kapag relevant ethical requirements such as independence and professional competence will be satisfied and the engagement exhibits all of the following characteristics. So, dapat yung subject matter is appropriate, criteria to be used are suitable and are available to the intended users. Practitioner has access to the sufficient appropriate evidence to support the practitioner's conclusion. The practitioner's conclusion in the form appropriate to either reasonable or limited assurance engagement is contained in a written report, and the practitioner is satisfied that there is a rational purpose for the engagement. To summarize what we have learned today, there are 5 elements of an assurance engagement, which includes three-party relationship, appropriate subject matter, suitable criteria, sufficient appropriate evidence, and written assurance report. Three-party relationship involves a practitioner, a responsible party, and intended users. A practitioner is a CPA in public practice who performs the assurance engagement. Responsible party is the person responsible for the subject matter and the subject matter information. Intended users are users to whom the practitioner usually addresses the report. Appropriate subject matter is the information to be evaluated or measured against the criteria, while subject matter information is the outcome of the evaluation or measurement of a subject matter. Suitable criteria are the benchmarks used to evaluate or measure the subject matter, which are required for reasonably consistent evaluation or measurement of a subject matter within the context of professional judgment. Suitable criteria exhibit the following characteristics: relevance, completeness, reliability, neutrality, and understandability. Sufficient appropriate evidence are the information obtained by the practitioner in arriving at the conclusions in which the conclusion is based. Sufficiency refers to the measure of the quantity of evidence, while appropriateness refers to the measure of the quality of evidence, that is, its relevance and its reliability. Lastly is the written assurance report, which is the written report prepared by the practitioner to the intended users that contains certain specified information and the conclusion that conveys the assurance obtained on the subject matter information. So after nating i-discuss yung mga elements of assurance engagements, next naman natin i-discuss is yung mga non-assurance engagements sa ating next episode. So if you like this video and if this video helped you, please give a thumbs up and subscribe for more episodes. Thank you!